Taoniara Dubu. How is everyone? I am Ayola Lubukola, also known as the published poet Her Silence and artist who creates through catharsis. I want to start off this year with a video explaining the basics of sickle cell disease, while also updating the collective on the 2023 accolades and updates from Healing Through Artistic Mediums LLC. As most of us felt, 2023 was difficult, transformative, full of growth, and personally full of intimate introspections. And I always try to reflect on my personal achievements and the growth of my brand while educating my audience. I'm going to break down 2023 into quarters so I can detail some events and achievements made in the past year. The beginning of 2023 was very difficult for me as I was in and out of the hospital, managing immense pain, having bouts of vomiting for months, COVID for the first time, still pursuing my undergraduate degree, and grieving so many heartbreaks. But I want to emphasize the things that definitely excited me, which includes traveling that I did later in the year. Make sure to subscribe to our Patreon to get the full video of this recap. It has more exclusive content, more explanations, more in-depth details to my experiences, and previews of projects, poems, artworks that I do before I post or just show the general audience on YouTube, Instagram, etc. So, for one, in January, I received my physical copy of Finding Paradise, a Black mental health anthology. This includes 2 poems written by Her Silence. If you're familiar with my work, the 2 poems were Who Tells the Stories of the Dead and How to Commit Suicide. Well, I know these titles sound controversial, but I will eventually expand on them in future video posts. I remember receiving the package in the mail during one of the times I was sick, and just seeing the package, just seeing the physical copy of my poems being in another anthology, it just lifted my spirits. February was a very eventful month as I created more Instagram posts specifically for the theme of the month, Black History Month, and also Black Love Week, Valentine's Day, you know. I also had the opportunity to showcase artwork at a 5th exhibition. By the way, follow us on Instagram at artby_io. That's artby_ayo. The showcase went really well, and the central theme was It Takes a Village. And I love that theme because that is a central theme for me within Healing Through Artistic Mediums. I love community work. I love the idea of community, people that you necessarily didn't grow up with but still have something in common with. You can learn from each other, you can have companionship, you can have empathy and compassion, all of these different things that takes a village to like grow yourself, be immersed with other cultures, be immersed with other people's backgrounds, but still have something in common with them. So, of course, with this wonderful theme, I took the opportunity to center sickle cell, the lives of warriors, and the communities that engulf us. Her Silence's performance touched on topics of ancestral epitaph and those with SCD who survived the Atlantic slave trade. The pieces that were showcased can be viewed on our Instagram page or on our website, hersilencespeaks.com. The feedback received on the paintings Skeleton Farmer Speaking About Sickle Cell, Shackled in Sickles, Jaundice, and the performances Sickle Cell Farmer Monologue, My People, Wet and Bloody, and Ain't I a First Daughter was great. Like, I love the feedback, and I love the feedback especially because performing is also always a vulnerable moment for me, no matter what I'm talking about. But these poems were about my health, the health of people within my community, but also one of my greatest identities is being a first daughter, which I have so many people in my life who are also first daughters, so that's just another community to me. I was even able to intimately connect with those who also have sickle cell warriors in their lives, and it was such a affirming experience in general. March was really endearing as I continued my undergrad studies, but especially because I worked on so many more paintings for my visual language course, I was able to learn how to mix colors and do the color wheel with only 3 primary colors, and then white and black, of course, for hue and shading and all of that. And I was able to go to visit a museum to pick out a painting that I needed to recreate. I leaned into abstract art as well, which felt less restrictive from what I'm used to, but was actually more difficult than I thought it would be. I wasn't used to being critiqued on my art like that in general, especially abstract art. It's not just painting anything. It's still like the intentionality of creating a piece that doesn't necessarily have a form, but it still has to be concise in some way. So I don't remember much from March, honestly, but now I want to get into explaining what sickle cell is. Most people don't know this, but sickle cell is actually considered an umbrella term. Why is SCD an umbrella term? Because there's so many different genotypes under this genetic blood disorder. According to the National Library of Medicine, sickle cell disease is a group term for hemoglobinopathies, or in simple terms, a group of inherited blood disorders and diseases. Specifically, this means red blood cells are primarily impacted because hemoglobin is a red blood cell protein. It contains iron and is why our red blood cells carry oxygen. Not to get too deep into scientific language, but I have to explain the impact and importance of hemoglobin, which is central to understanding different SCD genotyping. Having an abnormal hemoglobin, which is anything other than A, changes the shape of the red blood cell and thus decreases its capabilities of carrying oxygen to vital organs. In science, genotypes and phenotypes describe the characteristics of our genetic makeup. The difference between genotypes and phenotypes is that the latter represents our physical traits such as skin color, height, hair textures, just to name a few. While genotypes describe the characteristics of an organism's hereditary information and are one of the 3 essential factors that determine phenotyping, genotypes are also essential to DNA sequencing. So why is this all important to sickle cell? Well, if you know anything about sickle cell disease, you're aware that it is a genetic blood disorder, but also that genetically the type of alleles your parents carry determine the type of sickle cell you will have. Alleles are gene variations that impact the attributions of living things. For example, I have hemoglobin SC type, which means I inherited an S allele and a C allele from both of my parents. There are many different types of sickle cell genotypes, and some are rarer than others. Everyone with SCD will not experience their disease symptoms the same, and because there are different genotypes, there are also different symptoms that are emphasized from patient to patient. There's a heavy misconception that one type is worse than the other, and although, for instance, hemoglobin SC type may present more complications, lower hemoglobin, greater need for blood transfusions, and higher risk of strokes, acute chest syndrome, and more pain crises, this isn't the central experience for everyone who has this genotype. Sickle cell warriors deserve to be treated uniquely for their own disease journeys and diagnoses. It is not a one-size-fits-all disease. As I detailed earlier in this audio, the full video will be posted on Patreon, meaning there will be more details on the updates and the events and the travels that happened in 2023 for Healing Through Artistic Mediums LLC. Also, more details on what happened, how I felt, more commentary from me, and more exclusive content like poems that are not usually posted, blog post audios, makeup tutorial details, recipes, me cooking, all of these different things. Exclusive content to earlier postings of paintings, and just a plethora of different things. So I just encourage you to go subscribe onto Patreon on the 3rd tier, Insights of a Cathartic Release, which this will be posted onto. But since I love sharing, I still want to give a preview of one of my poems that was written in response to one of my art pieces, but also enhances the topics I discussed in this video. Death is a solemn guest. I believe I wrote this poem September 11th, 2022. Well, at least that's what my notes app says. But the premise of it is basically not just about death as in the physical death of someone passing on, more so about what death means, the transformation of death and rebirth. It's also about growth and grieving your childhood, grieving the innocence of your childhood, but I emphasize the reality of death in a sickle cell warrior's life, more so towards the end of the poem. However, the overall arching theme is just grief, but in a way that's also reflective, also renaming yourself, which is very important to me. So here it goes. Death is a solemn guest. I've been grieving my childhood, and not in the sense of ponytails and hopscotch, DSI games and Polly Pocket. Not in the sense that I think I know everything. Not in the fear, not in the abandonment. Not in the pinky promises and candy girl rhythmic games. Not in the footsteps that walk away from you. The voices that forgot to sing your praise, your name, or whatever they wanted to take from your lungs. Some things I still do as an adult child. I still cry every full moon. Still even more confused. I still call my mother mommy, accidentally on purpose. I've been grieving that strength and energy I once had to be silent. I've been grieving that version of her silence that accepted being a doormat, saying, "All are welcomed here, with love." Thanks for watching, and don't forget to find healing through artistic mediums. To watch the rest of this video, subscribe to our Patreon tier, Insights of a Cathartic Release.